Welcome, witches and wizards in the Stichwitches yarn coven. Today is a very rainy day, and what better day than to announce to you a new audiobook / crochet knitting club. As you might have guessed by now, it is called the Stichwitches, and this is going to be a bi-monthly club where we pick an audiobook to read together, and we will also pick a project that you can either crochet or knit. Most patterns don't come in a knitting and crocheting version, so I will be making the other version of the pattern, or find two very similar patterns, so that whatever craft you choose, we all still can make the same thing. I know in my bookish community, a lot of people are thinking about either starting to knit or crochet, and this club is perfect for that. The idea is that in the first month, we will have a live show specifically for the project. That is where I can show you things, where you can ask me all kinds of questions about the start of your project, or, how far you're in, your yarn choice, your materials, whatever you would like. And then in the second month, we have another live show, but that is to discuss the audiobook we have read together. So just let's dive in our first book and project, shall we? I am so thrilled that today is finally the day I can announce it, and that it is raining. I've been wanting to start this club since the beginning of the year, but I just couldn't, and it is finally time, guys. I have chosen very basic projects, just so you can learn the basic stages of either knitting or crocheting. But I think it is easier or shorter to talk about the book, so let's do that first. As I said, this is an audio book club because then you can at least knit or crochet while listening to your book. And I thought it would be fun to read somewhat spooky but mostly cozy book based on the yarny crafts we're about to start. So I chose the Vampire Knitting Club by Nancy Warren as the first audiobook. This audiobook is available on basically any audiobook platform. I have seen it on Storytel, Everent, BookBeat, as well as Audible. So it feels like a book that everybody is available to get. And since this is about a knitting club and we're starting one, it seemed very appropriate. Especially since we're starting one in spooky season. This book is about Lucy Swift, who travels to Oxford to visit her grandmother. Her grandmother has a knitting shop, which sounds great. With Grant's undying love to count on and Cardinal Woolley's grand knitting shop to keep her busy, Lucy can catch her breath and figure out what she's going to do. Except it turns out that Gran is the undying, or at least the undead. But there's a death certificate and a will, leaving the knitting shop to Lucy. That sounds amazing. I've heard great things about this book. It seems to be a very cozy series. So I thought, let's start the first book and then we can decide if you want to continue with the series or want to try something else. So the live show for this book will be at the end of October. So you still have plenty of time to read. So let's get on with the project. This time around, it is based on a knit pattern that I have also written a crochet version for. As I said, this is to help you start getting into knitting and crocheting. So I have chosen a very, very beginner friendly project where you only learn the basic stitch, increasing and decreasing. That is all the basics you need. And I just want a very easy, very fast project so you can get a feel of it without investing too much time or too much materials. So we're gonna make the Dahlia hair tie bow. This is a free knitting pattern by Isabel Cecilia, and I have made a crochet version too. So in the Google Drive down below, I have linked the free knitting pattern as well as my crochet version. And this is how it looks. This is a hair tie. You can put it in your hair, but yeah, no. With the head on, it didn't work that well, obviously. You tie it around and then you have a cute thing like this. This is the knitted version. This is the crochet version. As you can see, they're extremely similar. This turned out a tiny bit bigger than the other. It's not, it's not that big of a difference. So whatever you choose to knit or crochet, we're both making the same thing. It is very easy. It is very fast. For knitting, you will learn the garter stitch, which is just knitting straight every single row. You will also learn how to decrease, which is just knitting 2 stitches together, as well as making a new stitch. For the crochet version, you will learn single crochet, decreasing, which is again crocheting 2 stitches together, as well as making a new stitch, which is basically making 2 single crochets in one. I will link videos that I found helpful for single crochet, for increasing, for decreasing, garter stitch, and also the increasing and decreasing for knitting also down below. So you can easily find that. We also have a Discord, which is, you guessed it, link down below. I would recommend going on the Discord, to be honest with you. I don't know everything. I have knitted for a long time, but I only crocheted for a couple of years. I recently started making garments like 2 or 3 years ago. And there are many more crocheters and knitting in the community. And I know them well enough to know that they are very willing to help you. So if you have questions while you're at the project and you're not at the live show, or you have to wait for the live show, but you have a current question that needs answered immediately, you better put it in a Discord. Because if I don't have time to react, somebody else might. And they all know, they're also all willing to help you out. So I think that would be easier to get through your project and get help faster if you are in the Discord. I promise you, it is a very diverse group. They're very acceptable. They're very willing to help. No questions are stupid. You're allowed to ask them all in the Discord. So please feel free to be welcome there. If you want, that is also another place where you can find the patterns, the knitting version, the crochet version, the links to the audiobooks, the dates for the live show. We will be voting on the days. That will also happen in the Discord. But also, this is the startup project. I wanted to start extremely easy and then see what you all are all comfortable with. What is your guys' interest? Because after this we could do shawls, but maybe you would like to do socks, or maybe you prefer to make a bag or a cushion, or a blank, whatever. This is a club for us all. I'm not here going to decide everything because it has to be fun for all of you. And we will make decisions and vote on stuff all throughout. That is how we do it in the Pins of Mischief book club, and the Stichwitches book club is not gonna be any different. So if you want to be part of the decision making progress, please join the Discord. That is where it's happening. The original pattern is made with mohair. This is mohair. This is drop skid silk mohair. I think that is the most affordable mohair out there. You can definitely use this. It is not easily accessible for all countries though, and there is a huge chance you have to get this online. But what it is just a very fluffy, very thin thread. That is what mohair is. Some people are allergic to mohair. I am one of those people. I get really annoyed when working with this. So if that is the case, but you really want your hair accessory to be fluffy, you might want to consider alpaca. It is the same thing, but with alpaca fiber instead of mohair. One comes from, you guessed it, alpacas, and the other one comes from goat. The hair structure is just different, and that's why the fibers are different. But it is both lace weight, which is the thinnest yarn you can get. However, as you could have seen, mine are definitely not fluffy. I did not use mohair or lace. I chose to use sock yarn. Sock yarn is called fingering weight in most countries. Fingering weight is the thick of the yarn, and the sock yarn is based specifically for socks. The difference is that sock yarn usually has something like nylon or polyamide to make them more sturdier, since on your feet is a very it's a surface that gets roughed about a lot. And not all fingering weights have that. Like all jacuzzis are hot tubs, but not all hot tubs are jacuzzis. This is kind of the same thing. So you can use sock yarn because that is probably the right fingering weight. Fingering weight is 420 meters in 100 gram of yarns, which is also, this one obviously doesn't say second. So sock yarn contains per 100 gram skein. This is a 100 gram skein. If you want fingering weight, it is around 420 meters or 459 yards. That is what we consider fingering weight. That is what I made this project out of. Sock yarns are available in any yarn shop, any web shop that sells yarn, but also here in the Netherlands or in Germany, it is sometimes available in Aldi or the Lidl. Most cheap craft stores have it. You just have to check what the meterage is. So that would be 420 meters or 460 yards somewhat of 100 gram. If you have 50 gram ball yarn, like this is 100, this is 50 gram, the meterage is also halved. It might seem logical, and it is. I just want to be very clear that if you have no clue what you're doing, I hope to already have answered most of your questions. Can you use any other yarn? Yes, you can. Just remember that how thicker the yarn you choose, the bigger your hair accessory is gonna be. So if you want it small, choose the lace weight or the fingering weight. If you really want it big, go decay or bulky. That is the only difference that you're gonna get. You can still follow the pattern. Yours is just gonna be bigger if you use thicker yarn. And you might need a bit more or less if you change yarns out. But with this little project, you should have enough of one ball anyway. So what do you need? For both knitting and crocheting, you need a ball of yarn. I would suggest either lace weight or fingering weight, which means mohair or alpaca silk or sock yarn, basically. Sock yarn is the most readily available, so that is what I used, just in case. You will also need a needle. I hold a plastic one. I would not recommend that. The positive thing of a plastic yarn or a plastic needle is that they're very easily available. They're very easily available at any craft store. The cheap ones, the expensive ones, whatever, they all have it. And usually the hole to put your thread through is thicker, is wider with a plastic one. As you could have seen maybe if my camera focused, I'm not sure, is that they also bend very easily. They are also more prone to snap. They're very cheap, so you know you can buy loads of them and it's gonna be fine. I prefer to use metal ones. If you choose metal ones, you have to make sure that the hole is big enough for your yarn. But the metal ones are sharper, so it is easier to cut through your yarn or splice the yarn if you need to. I will explain that later in the live show. But also, they don't bend as much, they don't break as much. Unfortunately, I can't show you because mine did break yesterday. But I had that one for years, guys. So it is very unfortunate that it kind of does not prove my point right now. But you have to believe me, I had that needle for years. And I have to get a new one now. And I will do that. And then you would either need crochet needles or knitting, or crochet hooks or knitting needles. Whatever you decide to do. Let's talk knitting needles first. Knitting needles come in a lot of variety. Like most things in life. The most traditional knitting needles are those. Spikes, basically. They're either metal or wood. If you choose metal, the yarn glides easier over your needles. If you choose wood, there is more friction, so your yarn stays on the needle. You might have to push and pull more, but they're less likely to slide off your needle. So there is a up and down for both of them. These are long needles, they're stiff. And you kind of hold them like this. And back in the day, we were learned to put them under your armpits. I would not recommend. You can also just hold this on your lap. However, you have to keep them straight. So it is, I feel like it is a bit more weight on your wrist. I don't like using these anymore. So I barely do. I use circular needles, and they come into different varieties again. These are the fixed ones. The cable is stuck to the needle. You can't change them out. They're stuck there. Which means the needle is also not going anywhere, and your yarn cannot get stuck between the needle and the thread that it is holding. However, if you buy this, you have to buy one for every single size. You can also buy them in which they call an interchangeable set. This is one of those. This is my metal version. What interchangeable means is that you have different length of cords in it. I have long ones, I have short ones. And they come with different size needles. So what you do is you choose the needle for your project. In this case, that would be a 3.5 millimeter, which I don't know what the US thing is for. I'm sorry, I will put it on the screen. And you can just take your needle and screw it on the card, just like this. And as soon as I'm like, oh no, I am a different project and I need 5 now, I can take them off and put the 5 on. The only thing is that you have to really make sure they're on tight there. Otherwise your yarn gets stuck in between. This is what I use daily, on a daily basis. For me, my knitting needles in the round are easier to keep on my lap. They're less heavy. I don't get as much shoulder pain or elbow pain if I use those. Not at all. But if I use the straight ones, I do get it. And I have been getting that since the beginning. So somebody told me at the beginning when I started knitting that you can actually knit straight with circular needles. You can. I prefer circular needles. But the thing is, there are many different needles because there are many different preferences. The interchangeable sets, like this is called an interchangeable circular needle set. I got one in metal. I also got one in wood. I have preferred wood for the longest time because it lets my stitches slip less often, which is very handy. Now that I sometimes use glittery yarn that is already kind of rough, then wood doesn't work as well. It glides better on the metal, and that's why I now also have a metal interchangeable set. So then the next question is probably going to be, do I need an expensive one? This wooden set is from Knit Pro, a very well-known brand. I really enjoy them, but this one was 80 euros. Again, I enjoy them. I like them. However, this metal needle set I tried out because it was 25 euros on either Temu or AliExpress. Very, very cheap. And I was thinking it's probably not gonna be good, but I was wrong. I prefer the cables on this one because they twist out on themselves. So what happens sometimes with circular needles, when you keep them rolled up, that is kind of the way you store them. Sometimes the needles, the cables stay like that, rolled up, and it's annoying when you're knitting. And for that they have come up with something that is called a swivel cord, and they turn back on themselves, so you get a straight cord again. This 25 euro set from either Temu or AliExpress does that. So that is kind of better than my wooden ones. I do enjoy my wooden ones, but that is because I prefer wood over metal. But that is a preference. The metal ones are heavier than the wood ones, so I can knit longer with the wood ones than I can with the metal. If you have wrist issues or a weak elbow, you might want to consider that in. I will link down the cheap set for you. I would not recommend to start with an 80 euro set. Please make sure you like knitting before you buy stuff like this. But a 25 euro set where you have all needles, so you know, any further project we choose to do, you probably have the needle size for, might be handy. And if you have the money, I think it is well spent. And you can gift it to a knitter if they don't like it. If you don't end up liking knitting. Crochet wise, there are also very different crochet hooks. In most cheap craft stores, you find these. These are metal crochet hooks, and they are in every cheap craft store. Unfortunately, I would not recommend these. These are very small, specifically on the 3.5 millimeter we're gonna need, which makes your hand cramp earlier and easier. I learned crocheting on these but it was not a fun experience, so I would not recommend. If this is the only thing you can get and you really want to start crocheting with me, do it. Be my guest. But I'm pretty sure you're gonna wanna upgrade really quick. What I would recommend are these. This is a crochet hook with a silicone handle. And what it does is that it is a bit thicker, so it is easier for you to hold your crochet hook. This is how I hold my crochet hook. People do it differently, but this is very relaxed to me. Just your thumb, your pointer finger, and then close your wrist. Not tightly. Just keep it relaxed. I can crochet with these a very long time. I hold them way better. For me, this is the perfect hook. The original creator is Amore Crochet Hooks. I was done with my meadow hooks, so I decided to, and I didn't know what was right for me, so I decided to try another AliExpress or Temu set. And that's what I'm still crocheting with. This is it. The scissor doesn't work, but I didn't buy it for the scissors. I bought it for the crochet hooks, and as you can see, multiple are missing because I'm still crocheting with it every single day, and I bought this 3 years ago. So a cheap set absolutely doesn't matter. I have seen these now also by Action in the Teddy in Germany. I would just recommend doing the silicone ones. They have them in cheap craft stores too. They aren't expensive. You can just buy the 3.5 millimeter you need and get another hook for another project if you need it. Or get the set. I think the whole set was €8 for me. I don't know if they are still that cheap. I will again try to link everything down below. You also have these. These are even wider. And for me, with my tiny hands, they don't work. I don't like them, but I can imagine that it is very handy for some people. So you could also try these. I think because I'm not used to them, I hold them differently and my hands get crampy because I'm not used to it. But they have the thumb rest, which gives you more grip, so it can definitely be an option, a possibility. So if you happen to have a yarn store or craft store near you and they have them loose, like not in the packaging, and you can try them out. See what holds better for you personally. And then Crochet also have wooden ones that make sure your yarn doesn't slip as much. I have never used my wooden crochet hook. I prefer the metal ones for crocheting, definitely. It's just easier, it glides better. I get so much easier in the flow with things. So that's it. The patterns that you need are linked down below, as well as the links to the audiobooks. You will need a 3.5 millimeter knitting needle or crochet hook, as well as a ball of yarn. I would recommend fingering weight because it is the most easily available, but the pattern originally asked for mohair, and honestly you can use any weight you would like. I would like to go through you with some things that might happen. What can happen is that you get a lot of pain in your hands, in your wrists, and in your elbows. And that can happen for a lot of reasons, but if you're new to crocheting or knitting, it is very, very likely that is because you hold your needles or your hook too tight. You barely touch it. Basically, you don't grip it too hard. If you're gonna be like this, it is gonna hurt a whole lot. So try to keep it as loose as it is. The same with your stitches. If they're teeny, mini, tiny, and they should be tiny, like we're working on 3.5mm needles, you're not getting big stitches. But if they're super tight and your fabric barely moves, you're either knitting or crocheting too tight, and that can also give you loads of pain. Your fabric should be easy to stretch out in every single direction. It should be flabbery if you know, wiggle it like this. If it is stiff and it just hangs there, you're probably knitting or crocheting too tight, and that can also cause some pain. The last thing is that it is simply just a repetitive motion that you're not used to. In that case, I would highly suggest you look up some hand stretches. I like to use stuff like this. That can help out with the pain, but most of the times it is because you're either holding your hook or knitting needle too tight, or you're making your stitches too tight. I do hope you join me in this new adventure, this new yarny adventure. I hope you're excited to read the book with us. If you only want to read the book or only want to crochet and knit with us and not the other part, that is also absolutely fine. The live show for this craft project will be on the 29th of September. That is a Monday. It will be on 7 p.m. CEST, which is European summertime. I will then there be helping you, but then you still have like a couple of weeks to get your materials if that is the day that you want to start. If you already want to jump ahead, everything is linked down below. Probably not immediately when you see this video because I'm filming it now and it has to go live in 4 hours. But I will upload it otherwise this weekend. The next projects could be anything, but we will discuss that in the Discord as well as the next book. And I just hope you're joining me in all the yarny fun. I can't tell you what the hobby has meant for me, being disabled at home and not be able to regulate my ADHD with movement like I normally would. Crocheting and knitting both has been an immense helpful tool to regulate myself and my energy, but also have relaxation and escapism, just like books. So I hope you join me. If you did like this video, please like, subscribe so you don't miss the live shows or any more yarny or book related chaos from me. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!